Hello and welcome to this program called Ways to Make Money While Unemployed. I'm Dr. Jim Lewis and I'll be your instructor. This presentation is being developed during May and June of 2020 as the country is trying to reopen following the COVID-19 pandemic that's resulted in something like 30 million Americans being unemployed. And about 100,000 people have already died, more than 100,000 people died in the U.S. alone. For those of you who are unemployed, this economic situation is dire, and I've tried to think of how people can make money when jobs aren't available to them. And for that reason, this webcast should be helpful for almost anybody needing to make money, regardless of whether they're unemployed or retired or just need a side hustle. I've thought of the general approach to earning money, and because I've been in business since 1981, which is 39 years as of last May the 1st, I'm very keen on entrepreneurship, as that's where new jobs are created. Large businesses, by definition, are automating and shedding jobs, so one of the suggestions that I'm going to make is that you consider starting your own business. But there are about 100 alternatives, so keep on going. I'm making this presentation free to you. I don't want your money, but there are families that have no income and have children to feed, and there are elderly people who can't afford the necessities. So I'd like to ask you to contribute to your local food bank or any kind of service that's feeding people right now. If you don't have any money, you can volunteer to help in the food service. There are other things you can do to help other people. Just look around and see what you can do. For example, you see in the photograph a young fellow teaching children. My talent is teaching, which is why I'm contributing in this way. And at the end of this presentation, you'll find a link to actually a couple of hundred ideas for making money. And I would encourage you to download it and share it with as many people as possible. And thank you for helping in whatever way you can. Just a little bit about me so you know why I'm doing this and what my qualification for presenting is. I was educated initially as an electrical engineer back in the 1950s and 60s. So I'm 78 years old as I record this. After working 15 years as an engineer, I got a PhD in industrial organizational psychology, which the course of study included things like vocational education, leadership, and motivation. And so I know how people think, and I know how that affects what they may do for a living and how they go about finding jobs and changing careers and so on. Going from being an engineer to a psychologist was a career change for me. I did that when I was 45 years old. And it's a grueling process, so I know what it's like. And trying to decide what you want to be when you grow up is no fun thing to go through. Now, I also have a training business still, and my business is down about 60%. So I know firsthand what this economic impact is like for some of you. You know, it seems that there are kind of two sorts of people right now, the haves and the have-nots. And I grew up in a Protestant church, and so there was a Bible quote that I remember from when I was a child: to him that has will be given, and him who has not, the little that he has will be taken away. And when I was a kid, that sounded pretty cruel. But at this point in my life, I understand the principle behind it, and if you understand that principle, you'll know that it's true. It all amounts to the consciousness that you have. So a person that has a consciousness of abundance has an experience of it, and the person that has a consciousness of lack experiences that as well. And the only way you have abundance is to change your consciousness. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to do that. We sometimes say, I'll believe it when I see it. And that's true. We will believe things when we see them typically. But the origin of things happens a different way. You'll see it when you believe it. In other words, if you believe something, you'll make it come true in your life. We call that the self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's well researched. Lots of research studies have been done that prove it, and I've seen it work firsthand in my own life as well as that of other people, so I can vouch for the validity of it, and whether you accept it or not, it works that way. Now, we have lots of beliefs about the world. We pick those up when we're children, and when I say that what you believe you'll make real, don't think I'm saying it's your fault that you believe the wrong thing. We all pick up these beliefs from the world, and they exist in almost every facet of our lives, as shown in the graphic. So we have beliefs about people. People are this or that. They're good, they're bad, they're friendly, they're unfriendly, they're helpful and not helpful. And we have beliefs about businesses, especially when we go to work in them. All they care about is making me work for the least amount of money possible, or, gosh, it's fun to go there every day. We also have beliefs about the world in general. It's hostile, or it's friendly, or it's a scary place, or whatever. And the good news is that we don't have to keep these beliefs that we pick up. We can adopt new, more helpful beliefs, and I'll talk a little bit about how you do that. But before I talk about changing beliefs, I want to share with you a law of physics. There are three primary laws in physics that Newton formulated. And the third law of physics says for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Now, if you state that at the personal level, it's what you express is expressed back or reflected to you, or the old saying that you may have heard is, you reap what you sow. And it's kind of like looking in a mirror. If you look in a mirror and you don't like what you see, you don't get angry at the mirror and try to change the mirror. You fix the original, and the reflection must be fixed as well. So what this means is what we express is what we experience. The question then is, what are you expressing? And you're expressing things because of what you believe. So if you believe in lack, you're going to probably express lack, and that's what you're going to get in your experience. If you express having, that's also what you get. You've heard this called the law of attraction. I don't like that term because it's not drawing things to you. It's actually a law of manifesting from within yourself. That's a better term, but you can call it either one. It's a law of physics, as you have just seen a moment ago. And physics, of course, is a study of how the universe actually works. And the quantum physicists have shown that Newtonian physics does not totally explain how the world works. The one thing you can be sure of is you can't beat a natural law. If you drop an apple, it's going to fall to the ground because gravity pulls it that way. And the law of attraction works whether you believe in it or not. It's been working ever since you were born. And so you might as well accept it and decide to believe something more positive than some of the things that limit you. Our whole study of economics is based on the belief in scarcity. And so we talk about utility theory and marginal utility, and we talk about the fact that there's greater demand than what's available, and that makes prices go up and all that sort of thing. But actually, as long as you believe in scarcity, that's what you're going to experience, and it's more helpful to believe that abundance is possible. And if you look around, there are lots of folks around that have abundance, and there's a principle in psychology that says what's possible for one person to accomplish is possible for almost everyone else, unless they have some sort of limitation that keeps them from being able to do it. There's a fellow you may have seen. He was born with no arms and legs. I think that might have been the thalidomide medicine that caused babies to be born that way. Now this guy, you say, he's totally helpless. He can't do anything. But he does. He gives speeches and he paints holding a brush in his mouth. And so if it's possible for someone like him to actually support himself with no arms and legs, then you and I can probably do even more amazing things ourselves. So if you begin by changing beliefs about abundance, you say, well, I could be a millionaire. It might take a while, but I could do it. Is it really true that abundance is everywhere? One thing about it, it's better to believe in abundance than scarcity. Like the one guy says there, I could live with having everything I want. It was interesting when Ford invented the automobile, there was a prevalent belief at that point in time that we were going to run out of horses pretty soon. And so we needed to start raising more horses, breeding more horses. We even currently have beliefs about running out of fossil fuel, and yet the reserves are just immense. It's probably going to be another 100 years before we run out, even at the rate we consume now. And almost everything that does run out, technology finds a way to replace it. There's a fellow who has a book about the fact that the normal principles of economics are wrong because they don't take into account technological changes. If you want to develop a consciousness of abundance, just start looking around. Even at the bottom of the ocean and the frozen poles, there's life. It's just amazing. Count the blades of grass. You can't do it. Count the grains of sand on a beach. You can't do that either. Count the number of stars, planets, and galaxies in the sky. If you look at some of the photographs from Hubble telescope, they look out into the most distant regions of space and there's stuff there, The universe doesn't know anything about lack. That's a basic given. What really happens in our experience is there's plenty of abundance around it. It just doesn't belong to us. We don't have it. So we're not getting our share, and the question is, how do we change that? Well, remember that law of physics? What goes out comes back to you. So you need to express abundance through things like gratitude. I'm thankful for what I already have, because this makes you realize you have a lot more stuff than you think. I was in Mumbai, India about 20 years ago, and there was a ghetto there that had about 1 million people living in it. Most of them in cardboard boxes, folks. No protection from the monsoon rains and that sort of thing. I mean, it was pathetic. You couldn't look at that sort of thing and go away without being affected by it. And so for most of us, even in this economic downturn that we're experiencing, we still have 1,000 times more than some of those folks had. One way to practice abundance is to give things you don't need. Give away old clothes and things to Goodwill. Give a percentage of your income to charity somewhere. It doesn't always have to be money either. Just helping people. Like I said earlier in the program, volunteer to hand out food or help in a soup kitchen or coach or tutor children. Cooperate with other people, share with other people, and just look around for evidence of abundance, because what you focus on is what you manifest, and focusing on lack will just get you more lack. Well, how do we make money when we don't have a job? We need a strategy. Now, I know some of you are going to say, I've got to find a job. I can't do anything else. Well, that may be true, but I'm going to give you some options to work on until you find that job. Because right now, finding a job is going to be fairly difficult in a lot of places because businesses are hurting. And so the job market is pretty slim right now. So the question that I ask myself is, who has money that they can afford to spend on something that I might do? those are the people that may pay me for some goods or services that I can provide. And the answer is 5 categories. Professionals, doctors, lawyers, architects, CPAs, etc. People that are self-employed, such as craftspeople or fix-it-uppers, people that go around and do yard work and so on. There are still a lot of people employed. I mean, the whole population is not unemployed, so those people have money. There are retired people who have a nest egg. They put away money before they retired. They're not living on Social Security, so they have money. Store owners, shop owners, people like that. Those are the kinds of people that might have money that they would be willing to give you in exchange for something you do for them. So let's see what we might do. This is actually sort of a repeat of the previous slide. Examples of these people are doctors, lawyers, CPAs, architects, engineers, consultants, counselors, nurses, judges, politicians. I don't know if a politician is necessarily a professional, but I couldn't think of what other category to put them in. They at least are getting paid. Merchants, such as wine stores, clothing shops, flower shops, small specialty food shops, retired people, as I said, and self-employed people like carpenters, home builders, trainers, craftspeople, and so on. So there's a basic principle that we all need to understand. People will pay for something that adds value to their lives. That includes things that they need and things that they want. And so the term value encompasses both of those. And they value things that make their life easier, more comfortable, more pleasant, or even more enriched. Here are just a few examples. Professionals, doctors, lawyers, those kinds of people, they'll pay for services that spare them from having to take their valuable time to do those things, such as doing work around the home or even dropping off their cleaning at a laundry. My CPA's been working 100 hours a week for the past few months because it's tax time, and I'm sure he will pay to have somebody deliver food to him at his office so that he can keep working, because he's making a lot more money per hour doing the work than he would be running errands for himself. People that are self-employed, now CPA is self-employed, but you don't have to be a professional to be self-employed. You can be a hairdresser and so on. Services or products that make their businesses more productive, more profitable, or easier to do. That's the sort of thing they'll pay for. Retired people will pay for things like entertainment and learning, anything that enriches their lives or makes them more comfortable. There's a program called Ollie where a lot of retired people go and listen to lectures on Appalachian music, for example. I live in the mountains of North Carolina, so my wife and I both know about these programs and have friends that teach in them. And then store owners, like my wine shop that I go to, they'll pay to have people make deliveries for them, clean the shop at night, enhance the appearance of the shop, and so on. So these are just some categories that you might want to think about as you go forward. Now, like I said, there's a list at the end of this presentation that has several hundred things in it, and you'll see specific suggestions there. Now, I said earlier, I'm a big believer in entrepreneurship. Basic principle that I think of is you need money, but you don't necessarily need a job. In fact, there's a given that you will never make as much money working for someone else as you can make working for yourself. And I've been doing this now for 39 years. This is my 40th year in business, and I've struggled through recessions and downturns and all kinds of situations, and I've had complete control over my life. Unless all my clients fire me at the same time, I have control. If you work for someone, it only takes one person to say you don't have a job anymore. So if you want control of your life, self-employment is really the way to go, I think. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some category ideas, and then when you download the list, you'll have a whole lot more than this. But let's just begin with some ideas. You could start selling hot dogs or burgers or sandwiches from a small portable kiosk like the one that you see in the photograph here. And you could do this from the streets downtown where it's permitted, or you could, if you live in a place where your yard and is near a roadside and there's traffic going by, you could sell from your yard. You could go to the farmer's market if you have one locally and buy vegetables and produce in bulk and then sell it from a kiosk on the side of the road. There's a fellow up the street from me that had a very thriving little business during the summertime when vegetables and things are available. And I stopped there and bought from him quite a few times. So that's an example. If you have old clothes or lamps or clocks, anything that's still usable, you can also sell those. And you can either sell those at a local flea market or from a kiosk, or you can have a garage sale and sell them from your yard. And then you can also make things like crafts and you can sell those. So those are just a few examples. Another thing you can do is offer services in people's homes, such as going to their home to groom their dog or provide daycare for the dog. When we travel, we have a lady that comes into the house and feeds my cats and feeds our birds. We board our dog at a kennel that has very good service, but she comes in and takes care of the other animals. The cats are not so easy to board. You can also provide child care while parents work. You have to be careful about restrictions on how many kids you can have because you need a license if you go beyond a couple of children in most places. You can also do yard work, particularly for people who are retired or just people that are too busy to do it themselves. And by the way, instead of just doing it all yourself, if you're really an entrepreneur, what you do is you enlist other people to do the actual work and you provide the marketing for it, and you take a percentage of everything that comes in and pay them a per hour fee as an example. You can provide a fix-it service, home repairs and so on. You can do gutter cleaning. You can do laundry for people. This used to be common when I was a kid. It's not so much common anymore. Nobody wants to do washing and ironing, but it is a possibility. And you know what I think is going to happen during this downturn is you're going to see a lot more cottage industries coming back, things that people did 50 years ago that they don't do very much anymore. You can do house cleaning and window washing. You can entertain at children's parties. You could be a clown, a comic, etc. You can haul away unwanted things to the dump because in a lot of places the garbage collection people won't take things like an old sofa that's worn out or a TV, and you can't just take a TV to the dump and throw it away. You have to dispose of those in certain places. So that's a service that you can provide to people. So we talked about making hot dogs and hamburgers at home and selling them. You can also make things like face masks. My stepdaughter's been doing that for the family, but not selling them to other people, but you could. And then you could bake cakes, pies, cookies, and sell those to restaurants or direct to individuals. We go to a seafood place occasionally that they don't make any baked goods themselves, so they buy the cakes and pies from someone else. You can make high quality pet food for people that have pets that have special needs. You can restore old photographs. There's a company called Paper Direct that makes all kinds of pre-printed forms, blank pages and so on, that have designs on them that make a nice looking product when you finish. And you can design business cards and pamphlets and flyers for small businesses and print those on your laser printer and make some money that way. You can repurpose old bric-a-brac and sell it. Laura Spencer from ABC News has a cable show where they go to flea markets and they pick up things and turn them into lamps or tables or whatnot. So you can check that out. So if you're a professional person like an engineer or a counselor or whatnot, and you've been laid off from your job, or you just need a side hustle, as they say, one of the things you can do is teach classes at community colleges, or you can sometimes find space in a church basement where they have a space that they can rent you to do a class. And you can teach things like exam preparation courses, or you can just teach like electronics theory or whatever it might be. And then on the left side of the slide here, other things you can do. If you're a professional videographer, you might want to create a video documentary on an interesting subject and sell it to someone like PBS. Or you might even just create the video and sell it outright. People might buy it, or you might sell it through Amazon. If you are a bookkeeper or office specialist, you can offer services to medical or engineering practices because they often don't want to do that stuff themselves, dentists, doctors, and so on. You can conduct retreats for other busy professionals if you happen to be, as I am, a psychologist, for example, or possibly a counselor, and you can do planning retreats for busy executives, and they'll pay to go off to a quiet place so that they can think for a few days. You can create online learning programs of all kinds, and my list has a lot of that sort of thing. You can write articles for magazines, and if you look around the state, usually every state has its own state magazine, and they're interested in pieces that tell about some interesting thing in the state, so that's a place to start. You can also sell to newspapers sometimes. You can also do research on things like markets and sell those reports to businesses or small businesses in particular. So that's a list of possibilities for professionals. One of the things that you may want to consider is starting an online business, and it's been funny to me to notice that one of the primary online businesses is teaching other people how to start online businesses, teaching you how to make money on the internet. These are just a few examples. You can sell stamps and coins. If that's a hobby, you can turn that into a money-making thing. You can conduct mastermind groups online. There's a woman named Karen Greenstreet. If you look her up or Google her, she teaches people how to conduct mastermind groups. You can develop educational online courses on all kinds of topics. It can be how to write your next novel, etc., etc. You could create a job board to connect employers to job seekers. You can offer music lessons online with Skype and Zoom. I have two granddaughters right now who, because they can't go to face-to-face music lessons, have been taking lessons on Skype. You can create music and sell subscriptions to monthly performances. Dougie MacLean, a Scottish singer, had a $10 a month subscription to his monthly broadcast and had thousands of people around the world subscribing to it. Now, you probably won't have 1,000 people unless you're pretty good musician, but you might have enough to pay your bills. You can sell things through Amazon or eBay, and that includes self-published books and other kinds of things, including services, handyman services, for example. You can collect antiques in country stores and sell those online. I used to know a lady that made a lot of money doing that. It's amazing what people will buy. She would find Coke bottles and all kinds of other things like that that people were looking for, and finding it online was just a bonus to them. They didn't have to go out and skirmish for it themselves. You can offer ghostwriting, editorial, and other online services of that caliber. You could be a virtual assistant, and by the way, you can use places like Upwork or Freelancer to place your services with people that need them. You could produce an online comedy show and sell subscriptions to it. People need a laugh these days, and if you're good at it, you could do that. You could host a talk show and get advertisers to sponsor it. So there's all kinds of possibilities for online businesses today, and many of them don't require much of an investment, which is ideal if you're hurting economically already. Well, I hope this has been helpful. You get the idea. The list I've created has these and hundreds more ideas that you can try. I've been brainstorming this list all by myself for the past few days, and I keep thinking of things that aren't on it, and I'll update it eventually. So you might want to check periodically to see if it's still in the same old edition. It's totally free. Just share it with other people as I've done. And the download link is https://tinyurl.com/moneylist2020. And that's it. It's published under the name of my Lewis Institute, which is my company. Thank you for watching this. I hope it's helpful to you. Good luck. Give me a holler on the company website sometime and let me know how you're doing and if this stuff's been helpful. Or if you think of ideas that you might want to share with other people, I'd love to hear those too, and I'll put them in the list when I update it. Take care of yourselves and stay safe.